Is a Locked On Heat, Locked On Cavs crossover reacting to Game 3 here straight from Kaseya Center. Let's go.
You are Locked On NBA crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome to a Locked On Heat, Locked On Cavs crossover. Thanks for making the Locked On Podcast Network your first listen every day. Wes Goldberg here from Locked On Heat, here with Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavs. Recording this from a room somewhere in Kaseya Center. It used to be filled with food because it smells like food.
It does.
It no longer has any food in it, which is slightly disappointing.
You know, there's so much to get to from this game on Saturday, but I love finding these random rooms. And Locked On Cavs viewers, more so than listeners, will know, like, anytime I'm on the road, it's either with the court in the background I'm recording or in a random room like this. And It's the funniest thing just to see every arena has them, just like the most random areas where you can find yourself recording a podcast on a Saturday afternoon.
It's great. And there is one celery stick on the floor, so we can fight that. We can fight for that.
That's all you.
At the end. But yeah, they are currently taking apart the court here at Kaseya Center for a concert over the weekend, and then they'll be right back here on Monday. And that might be the last time that at least you're at Kaseya Center for a while, because this was the most dominant win from the Cavaliers, basically wire to wire. I'm calling it wire to wire, despite the fact that Miami jumped out to an early lead.
Right.
But that was kind of it. It kind of felt like one little kick right before the death, and then the Cavs just went from there. There's a ton of stuff that we could break down from this game. We will look ahead to what Game 4 might look like on Monday. But what was your takeaway from the Cleveland perspective?
So I thought it was interesting because you mentioned the start of the game. Miami got out to, I think it was a 15-6 lead. And then the Cavs went on an 18-0 run. And I asked Kenny Atkinson about that specifically because I was thinking, okay, the Cavs are up 2-0. Miami's going to come out with a sense of desperation that I'm just not sure that a team leading a series 2-0 can manufacture. And then the Heat go on this run to start the game, and Kenny Atkinson talked about not coaching to the score early and not overreacting to something like that early. And then the thing about that run, too, is it started when Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley went to the bench. So much of that was fueled by Ty Jerome. So much of that was fueled by DeAndre Hunter. And then it just felt like the Cavs really took off from that point, where they then looked like a team that was more desperate, which I think was the most surprising aspect of this. I expected Miami on Saturday to maybe not win this game, just because I really don't know that Miami has enough answers to what Cleveland's doing on both ends of the floor. But I expected them to come out and be the desperate team in this to be a much closer game. So I was really surprised in that aspect of it.
Yeah, I'm watching this game, and I thought this would be the big game. You're going to be coming back home, Cleveland on the road, they're up 2-0, the way that they've won, all this stuff. And you've got a little bit of trash talk going between Darius Garland and Tyler Herro going in this game, and the Heat are they're a bulletin board team. This is kind of what they get off on. But,
sure.
You know, obviously they get blown out in this Game 3, and I can't help but think, was Game 2 the one that got away? Because for Heat fans, they'll remember the first round of last year against the Boston Celtics, 8th seed versus the 1 seed. Miami went into Boston and stole Game 2.
Right.
And Miami fought Cleveland in Game 2. That was a very competitive game until Donovan Mitchell took over late. And I thought the game plan was really sound by the Heat. And, you know, Game 1 was weird. It was a really quick turnaround from the play-in tournament to that one. So it counts, obviously, but I almost don't count it in terms of how I'm breaking down and analyzing the series.
Right.
And then you see Game 2, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe this is something that could be a little competitive. I wasn't going to sit here and pick the Heat, but I was like, maybe this is a little bit more competitive than we thought. And then it wasn't. And what really stood out to me was it felt like Miami found answers to their problems in Game 2, and then Game 3 came around. The Cavaliers made their adjustments, as should be expected. And then Miami basically just ran out of answers. Like, that was it. Like, they had answers for the first test. They don't have answers for these tests anymore, just because the talent disparity just is what it is.
And I think if you're listening to this as a Cavs fan, watching this as a Cavs fan, I think one of the best signs for Cleveland is that they did this without Darius Garland playing.
Good point.
Missed the game with the toe.
Yep.
Donovan Mitchell didn't have a very good game. I didn't think, at least not shooting the basketball. He didn't score the ball well.
Didn't need to.
But exactly. The Cavs got input from so many guys. DeAndre Hunter, I thought, was awesome. Jarrett Allen was awesome. I thought Evan Mobley was great. Both sides of the floor. Max Strus, I thought, had a really solid game. Like this, if you're looking for, other than being optimistic about a playoff game where you have a 40-point lead on the road, because it's obviously going to bring a lot of optimism, the fact that the Cavs didn't have one of their all-star guards, Their other all-star guard didn't have a good game, and that was the result. I think is the biggest point of optimism you can look for from the Cavs, looking beyond this series. Because if we're being honest here, like this is a series that ended today.
Yeah.
They say a series doesn't start until the road team wins.
I hate
a
that
game.
saying.
I do too. But if you go by that, the series started today and ended today.
You can still win the series if you're the home team and you win all 4 of your home games.
Correct.
So if you win all 4 of your home games and lose all 3 and you win in 7 games, has the series not started yet?
Maybe it starts and finishes
you just have
without
to
ever
redo the series. You
starting.
have to just replay it. It doesn't make any sense. I hate that saying. That said, no team has ever come back in NBA history from down 0-3. So, and I have no reason to think that this Heat team will do it, even though they say all the time every team that's down 0-3 is like, we're going to make history, and then they don't.
Let us get one, right?
Don't let us get one.
That's what they're going to
say.
say.
And look, they might get one. Who knows? It might not be a sweep. Sweeps are very rare in the NBA. But it's still this series is over.
I want to ask you about that because I went into this series thinking the Cavs would win it in 5 games.
Yeah, that's what I had.
Thought Miami is too good of an organization. Eric Spoelstra is too good of a coach, and that roster that the Heat have is not a roster that should go 37-45. I think that there was a lot of stuff that went on with Miami this year that led them to being a 37-45 team as opposed to a team that probably should have been around 500. I think a lot of the advanced stuff pointed to them being a 500 team. But did they let go of the rope on Saturday? Like, was that the end of Miami's season? Because I don't know, and you can answer this way better than I. That's why I'm asking you. But is there coming back from this as a team?
In terms of being able to win game 4?
Do you think they're going to respond in a sense where they can come out on Monday night and win a game against the Cavs?
I think they can. Yeah, the Heat are a short memory team. They will use this and say we won't go out like that. Like they're not going to play like this in game 4. I think game 4 will be a lot more competitive. But to the point that you made about letting go, they 100% let go of the rope in this one. Yeah. That's why I said I think game 2 was the one that was the one that they should have won if not for Donovan Mitchell just going bananas in the last 2 minutes of that game. If you remove that from the equation, maybe that's the one that Miami gets. They kind of spring it on the Cavs. This great game plan. Eric Spoelstra kind of, to your point, there's too much respect for Spo around the league. Like Spo is a good enough coach to win a playoff game no matter the series. And I think that was the game it was supposed to be. But Donovan Mitchell is too good in crunch time where he's like, this was supposed to be your W, but I'm taking it back.
Yeah, I get that sense too.
Yeah.
Like I get the Cavs, and they have preached during this series that Miami, no matter what the record, the talent disparity, anything, Miami's going to play for 48 minutes every game. And they didn't do that. The reason why they almost won game 2 is because they did that. The Cavs led by 19. Miami fought their way back into it because they played great basketball in the second half. And as you mentioned, like Donovan Mitchell just went out and won that game the way that superstars do. And that is obviously a really good thing for Cleveland. But it's hard for me at this point to see very many avenues to Miami winning a game in this series. And I didn't think I would ever be saying that about a Miami Heat team. I didn't think I would be saying that at the start of this series. And after today, I almost think I'm more impressed with what the Cavs have done considering how dominant they looked defensively today specifically. Like we know they can be great offensively. They're one of the best offenses in NBA history, finished with the number 1 offense in the NBA this season. But the fact that Miami didn't score more than 22 points in a quarter until the fourth quarter when reserves played almost half of it, that to me is kind of the biggest statement I think either team has made in this series so far.
I would agree. I want to kind of dive into some of the X's and O's and the adjustments that both coaches made going into this game and some of the issues and questions that I have about Miami defensively in this thing. But before I do that, was that your biggest takeaway then from Cleveland? Was because you were asking about it in pregame. We were in the same media sessions, and you were asking about the level of desperation and all these things. Was that really what you were looking for, or was there something else that you took away?
No, I think that you were looking for maturity. You were looking for focus from the Cavs, and let's face it, Miami can be a difficult place to play for a number of reasons, especially on a Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. Like we all know what it is, but like that can be a really challenging thing. And I think that given that the Cavs have not had a ton of postseason success before, I think that defensively they were great, offensively they were great, but they showed a sense of maturity that I think you need to win a title, and that is a box I think you can check off after Saturday.
So let's get into the defense, the offense. I want to look at this basically from the perspective of both sides defensively, because I think that's where this game got really interesting. We're going to do that really quick right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Heat and Locked On Cavs is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You could track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. We'll be right back. All right, so let's start with Miami defensively, because I think that's where this thing kind of got out of hand.
Right.
Even though Cleveland did some fascinating things defensively that we'll talk about. But the Heat jump out to that early lead, and then the Cavs score on 3 straight possessions. And it's the same play, 3 straight possessions, essentially. It's an empty side pick and roll. Mm-hmm. And they're going at Khalil Ware. 1, 2, 3. They score 1, 2, 3. They tie the game at that point, and then they open up a 10-point lead to end the first quarter, and they take control, and that's the game. What's interesting about that is in the first 2 games, they were targeting Tyler Herro.
Right.
Over and over and over again. How do we know? Because Darius Garland said it, and because it was insanely obvious. And then I think Miami made an adjustment. You noticed it right away. It was, instead of Herro guarding Max Strus, who was consistently involved in those pick and pop actions, those pick and roll actions, they had him guard Sam Merrill, and I would guess that was going to be the game plan, whether or not Garland played. Like, that Herro would have just defended Garland probably, even if Merrill wasn't there, because they don't use Garland as much as a screener. He's just not as effective as a screener.
Well, and I do think too, there's something that you could do in terms of Miami's defense to try and bait Darius Garland into playing isolation basketball, because that's not where the Cavs are at their best. I would argue that's not where any team is at its best offensively. So I think that putting Herro on Garland would have made sense. Putting him on Merrill's a little differently, just because maybe you're not wearing him out by putting him into the action, but Sam's going to run a ton. Like, you are going to have to chase him across the floor over and over again, and that is an entirely different challenge in itself. But I do think that the Cavs went into this maybe not wanting to prove a point, because I don't think that you need to do that in the postseason, but they can do so many different things offensively. And listen, they knew before Miami knew that Darius Garland was not going to play today. Like, they probably knew this when they put Garland on the injury report as questionable on Friday, that, hey, Darius is not actually going to play on Saturday.
Right, a little bit
so
of
they had a little bit of time to
Yeah.
prepare for that and think, okay, if Miami's going to, it's almost making the counter before the other team can make an adjustment, if that makes sense. Like, I kind of think that's a little bit of what the Cavs did. And then you also saw, like, I don't believe Khalil Ware played in the first half after that first stint.
No.
I'm pretty sure that was the only minutes he played. The Cavs, in some sense, played him off the floor. And really, the only lineup for Cleveland that Miami had success against today was the starting 5 for the Cavs. That was it. And obviously, without Garland, it wasn't the normal starting 5. But other than that, Miami could not find footing against any of the other lineups the Cavs had.
And what's really troubling if you're Miami is, hey, we schemed out this Tyler Herro pick and roll. Like, this is the thing you wanted to go to. And the thing that you mentioned about Garland, we said this on the Friday show on Locked On Heat, was I think I would have just Tyler Herro guard Darius Garland and force Cleveland into actions that they don't want to be in.
Right.
Which is those isolation type of possessions. And you're not going to do it all game, and you risk Herro getting into foul trouble, and that's very obviously super important to your offense, but at least just try it. And I thought they would try it from the jump, and I do think that was the plan, but they probably still had a sense that this guy's probably not going to play, and he's also not going to be as effective if he's dealing with this big toe injury.
Right.
So Herro might be safe to kind of dock him there. That said, what was really troubling, if I'm Miami in this sense, is that Cleveland saw it, and they were like, oh, okay, that thing we were doing for 2 games, we're just not even going to do it anymore. It's not even they didn't even try it because they didn't have to.
Right.
They're like, oh, we just have all these other things that we could do now. Like, they didn't even try it, like, ever. So they were just like, okay, we're just going to attack the rookie who has been sort of this weak link that we've just been leaving here the entire series. And it's not like Khalil Ware's had an awesome series, but I don't think he's been attacked to the degree that he was attacked in that first quarter. You're right. They played him off the floor. That was his first stint. Spo calls a timeout after Cleveland takes that lead. And then we see Khalil Ware one more time in the important parts of this game at the beginning of the second half. And then he gets like 5 more minutes in garbage time, but who cares? So that to me is the really troubling thing if you're Miami, because you've had these defensive issues against Cleveland this entire time, and it just feels like there's no way. You put one fire out and another one springs open. But the really impressive thing for Cleveland, because they just have this huge, diverse menu of options that they can go to.
Well, it really speaks to the depth.
Yeah.
They didn't feel not having Darius Garland today. They didn't feel Donovan Mitchell not having a good game because they have so many different ways that they can attack opponents, whether it is wanting to...
Was this Jared Allen's series high, 22 points?
I believe it has to be. I can't imagine that he's had more than that in either game 1 or game 2. And I thought he was awesome. And he, at the first media timeout, the Cavs only had 4 points. They were down 12-4. Jared Allen had all 4 points, and he was heading to the free throw line, made both, and he had the first 6 points for the Cavs. Right. And then that's really when the floodgates opened up. But they have so many different ways where they can attack teams. I thought that was really on display because it wasn't Donovan Mitchell just, hey, Darius isn't here, got to put the team on my back. It was a lot of ball movement. It was getting DeAndre Hunter involved in a way that he had not been involved. Like in game 1, he went scoreless. Game 2, he was better. I thought today he was fantastic where, he was such a big impact. And I thought that thinking back on what Ty Jerome did in game 1, where he had 28 points, I believe it was awesome from the floor. The scoring wasn't necessarily there today. Like, he hit a couple of big shots. He was fine.
He did.
But he had 11 assists. Right. And, it's always – that is part of the beauty of this Cavs team is that it's always something different. Sometimes it can be Donovan Mitchell just, hey, go score 35 and be awesome because he's somebody that's probably going to be first-team All-NBA, second-team at the worst All-NBA. But they've got so many different guys. They just – I guess the thing that has really been reinforced to me is the Cavs don't have bad basketball players in the rotation. Nope. And that is a really rare thing. It might not sound like it, but go up and down and look at across the playoffs how teams will have to cut down their rotations. Kenny Atkinson has played 10 guys and played 9 because Darius Garland didn't play today, but he's not done that at all because he hasn't had to.
And Miami is sitting here, and no disrespect to guys like Pelle Larsson, but he's a rookie.
Right.
Nikola Jovic, I thought he was really good for most of Game 2. He had a really rough end of Game 2. I thought he wasn't very good in Game 3. Khalil Ware, you're forced to play a rookie right now. Again, Cleveland is in a very different part of their team-building cycle than Miami is.
Absolutely,
Miami is coming off of the Jimmy Butler thing. They're at very much a crossroads. Cleveland is sort of in a lot of ways, especially in that front court with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, what Miami wants to be. Miami's just starting. Bam is finally playing power forward. Khalil Ware is finally playing center. There's going to be a lot of firsthand data points, knowledge, film that Khalil Ware can use from this game and just be like, oh, Jared Allen just got by me 3 straight possessions for a pick and roll. I got to clean this up. I got to figure out how to be more anticipatory or quicker on my feet or whatever he needs to clean up there. But it's a ton of credit to Cleveland. They're an awesome basketball team. I've said it all along. If they were wearing Lakers jerseys, they would have been the favorites. But they're the Cavaliers, so people have a barrier, like a mental block with them sometimes when LeBron James isn't playing for them. So I have some stats that I want to throw your way, and then I want to talk about Miami's defense.
I want to ask you a question first.
Yeah.
Did today or have the first 3 games in this series made you more confident about the Cavs being able to win the title? Because I do think that the maturity aspect that we talked about, the fact that they were able to win with defense, which in the second half of the season really was not a strong suit for them, and I think they kind of underachieved defensively all year for what their roster is, like finishing 8th. Defensively, when you've got Evan Mobley and Jared Allen starting and playing, 30 minutes a night, probably not where you should be. But I do wonder if those things are going to maybe shift the narrative a little bit, like kind of open the eyes of some people that, oh, this is kind of flipping the switch in the postseason.
For me, no, because I've been pretty high on Cleveland. And I would still have Boston favored, but only because I have to pick somebody. I'm not going to – if it's Boston and Cleveland like we all anticipate in the conference finals, I'm not going to feel good about whatever I pick.
Sure.
Because these two teams are so close. I've always thought Cleveland had the goods. Like, I think that they have the most talented starting 5 in basketball outside of Boston, and you could argue it's right there with Boston. Like, people just don't think about them, again, in that way. And then your point with the depth, you think about the Raptors in 2019. Maybe they didn't have the top-line depth, even though Kawhi was just unreal in those playoffs, but they didn't have a bad player in their rotation. The Spurs won multiple championships, obviously with great players, and the Cavs have great players. But it was, hey, guys 7, 8, 9, 10, they're also pretty good players, and there's not somebody that you look at. Even guys like Sam Merrill, Ty Jerome, they're not awesome defensively, but they compete their asses off on that.
Well, I mean, one of the things that stood out to me today, and I want to get it right how many points he scored because it wasn't many. He didn't make a shot. Dean Wade did not score today.
Yep.
I thought he was awesome.
Wasn't playing in the series. Garland's out. He gets some run.
I thought Dean Wade was awesome. I think he played 5 or 6 minutes in each of the first 2 games. Like, he had not played much, and I still think he was a little apprehensive on the perimeter. Like, he passed up a shot at the top of the key that led to an Isaac Okoro 9-1-1 attempt from deep that basically was a shot clock violation that he still needs to pull the trigger on those types of looks. But I thought that what he did defensively, there was a lineup where the Cavs threw out there. It was Mobley, Hunter, Wade, Strus, and Mitchell. And it's just like, good luck scoring on that.
Right.
Donovan Mitchell's your weak link, and he's putting forth, I think, a pretty good effort defensively and fighting really hard. That, to me, is one of the things, and they've not done that a ton, and part of that's because they didn't have Garland today. But some of the lineups that they were able to put together, it's like, man, they don't have a weak link, and I thought that was what really turned this game into what it was.
And the Heat are sort of scrambling. They're scrambling to find lineups that work. They had Jovic playing the 5 at one point when Khalil Ware got played off the floor, and Spo tried that for a couple of minutes. It didn't work out. Bam had to go back in. How many minutes did Bam play? Because
40. He played 40 and checked out with
right.
more than 5.5 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it was 5:40 on the clock.
They couldn't take him off the floor.
No.
And he was great defensively still. I mean, it wasn't his best defensive game, but he was better than the other options. He's still Bam, but yeah, they can't afford to take him off the floor.
What did you think of Bam offensively?
Well, I want to get to that.
Okay.
All right, so I've got the stats here. Miami was outscored 60-30 in the paint. Doubled up. They gave up 67% shooting on 2-point field goals to Cleveland. They got outscored 52-18 by the bench. We were just talking about that. There's a number now. They made 16 threes on 47% shooting from deep, and they lost.
Right.
In a blowout fashion. That's where I want to get to next. Cleveland's defense. Fascinating for a lot of reasons. They tried to take Tyler Herro out the first couple games. Didn't always work. I thought Tyler was sensational in game 2.
Oh, yeah.
And they just, instead of changing their scheme, and we talk about adjustments all the time in the NBA, and sometimes the best adjustment is just do it better. Yeah. And they said, okay, enough with like these soft denials, and we're gonna pick and choose our spots. We're just gonna do it the whole freaking game. So Max Strus was just in a staring contest with Tyler Herro all night, and they would top block Tyler Herro, and they would force him down into the corner. And there was multiple possessions where Tyler Herro was just standing in the corner, staring contest with Max Strus, just chest to chest. And like getting ready for a UFC fight, and all the basketball is being played behind Max Strus while Tyler Herro is just staring at it from the corner. And I don't know that Tyler Herro did anything wrong necessarily. I just think that maybe the Heat weren't prepared for that degree of, hey, we're going to be this committed to just taking Tyler Herro out of the offense. And then to answer your question, that's where Bam has to come in. He took 20 shots in this game, which is a fair amount. He only made 9 of them. I thought he could have been better, but I think when Cleveland is top blocking that and downing Tyler Herro into the corner, it kind of takes away that connective tissue of Miami's offense, which is the Tyler Herro, Bam Adebayo 2-man game. Mm-hmm. Those dribble handoffs, those pitchbacks, those 45 actions, all those things that Miami wants to get to, they work symbiotically with Tyler and Bam do. And so when you kind of break that tissue and you just force Tyler Herro to one side of the court and make Bam operate over here with other things, they don't have that initial trigger to get them into their best actions or their best sets. So Miami tried a couple of things to try to get Bam going. I think they could have done a better job of trying to feed him in the post, let him get into that jab step, pull up and stuff. But Cleveland was doing a lot of things to take that away too. Miami does not have a great entry passer. That's been an issue for them all season long. So yeah, I think I give a lot of credit to Cleveland's defense, but the Heat are going to need more from Bam and Tyler Herro.
Well, and I think part of it, too, with Miami's issues, they just don't have a lot of guys that you trust to handle the basketball, right? Like, when you're asking Bam, who is an awesome player, and I didn't think had a very good game offensively today. Like, I know he scored 22 points. He shot the ball fine. He made 4 threes, which you're not necessarily expecting from Bam
that's not
on a regular basis. Right. But he had 6 turnovers. Like, I thought one of the things the Cavs did best, and I thought Evan Mobley was great at this, they put a lot of pressure on him away from the basket and put him in positions because of the top blocking on Tyler Herro. And I think it's funny, too, because, I don't know how coaches and players in Miami speak, but across the NBA, like, guys won't necessarily get very tactical when you're asking them questions. And it felt like every single person that we talked to after this game today on the Cavs side mentioned top blocking Tyler Herro. Like Kenny Atkinson said it, Donovan Mitchell said it, Evan Mobley said it. Everybody that we talked to about them defensively, that's kind of what they pointed to with it starting. And then I thought Evan did a great job making Bam have to make decisions far away from the basket. And I think that is what kind of forced him into those turnovers, which when you have 6 turnovers from one guy who obviously had to be very high usage because Miami just doesn't have a ton of basketball handlers, a ton of decision makers on the perimeter, that to me is where the Cavs really won this game defensively.
Yeah, they schemed both of their best offensive players, better said, their most trusted offensive players,
Yeah.
Bam and Tyler Herro. They schemed him out. And so now if you're Miami, you're kind of doing this ad hoc, well, I guess Davion Mitchell is going to bring the ball up every time. Nikola Jovic was bringing the ball up a bunch early in this game. They tried a bunch of different things, and they couldn't get into it. And I know Heat fans that are watching this are going to be saying, well, they should have tried X, Y, and Z, and maybe this player, maybe they should have brought Jaime in earlier or whatever. None of these things are going to work, okay?
Right,
it's
right.
like if these are the answers, then you're asking the wrong questions. So the Cavaliers defense, I agree with you. I thought they were better than 8th based on their personnel and what they can be. I think they are better than that. I think they are a better defense than what they showed, and I think Miami's defense is a little weak. And to me, the Tyler Herro part of this is so interesting to me because he was so tested against Boston because Jimmy Butler gets injured in the play-in tournament and he's the only guy there.
Mm-hmm.
And Duncan Robinson is hurt and Terry Rozier is hurt, and it's just like him and Bam and then a bunch of rookies.
Right.
And so Bam's got his hands full defensively against Boston, and it was Tyler Herro to do everything offensively. And he had a sensational game too, just like he had in this series. But he was tested, and he was top-locked a lot in that one and doubled and blitzed off of screens and everything like that. He went into the lab in the offseason, changed everything about his game. I would have voted for him most improved. I thought he had an amazing season. And then he comes into this series, and he's tested on defense relentlessly. And then in this game, it's the other side of the ball now, where he's just sort of this interesting basketball X's and O's case study now on offense with all the top blocking and stuff. So it is fascinating to kind of view this series through the lens of Tyler Herro and how much he's been tested. But to me, if I'm the Heat, knowing that this season is probably over, this week, Monday, or maybe, a little bit after that, but it's pretty much over. These are the lessons. It's, hey, Khalil Ware, pick and roll coverage, that's something that we need to work on. Standing up against guys that are as big as you, stronger than you, like Jared Allen, we need to figure that out. Tyler Herro, I don't know that it's necessarily, again, his fault. We need to figure out other options, other things to figure out with him.
It's hard for me to say that this is Tyler Herro's fault. It
Right.
is. Like watching this, and I think a big part of the Cavs game plan, why they have been so, I guess before today, so wanting to attack Tyler is to tire him out. It's not
Right.
necessarily only because he's not a great defender. It's because
It's the
he's
same
also their
strategy
offensive engine.
It's the same strategy teams have deployed against the Warriors for years because they're just trying to tire Steph Curry out.
Yes.
Make him run miles, make him, hit elbows, bruise him up. And Amen Thompson holds him to 1 of 10 shooting a week before the end of the regular season. Nobody is sitting there and saying, like, Steph Curry has a much different resume than Tyler Herro. Granted, I know there's not a fair
there's a few
comparison.
more awards there.
But the point is, I'm glad you're saying it because I think there's a lot of Heat fans that are saying, well, we need more from Tyler. He has to be better. But sometimes it's just you look around and you're like, what else am I supposed to do?
Right, and I think that this was a different way of tiring him out.
Yeah,
Like, Tyler
exactly.
didn't have a very productive game offensively, but he had to work incredibly hard. And I think maybe more so what the Cavs have forced him to do offensively. I thought game 2, he was fantastic. And I kind of feel like in this series, he's made every good look that he's had. Like, it does not feel like that he's missed very many, if any, easy shots.
A couple floaters in game 1, that's about it.
And floaters can kind of be finicky. Like,
Yeah, and we talk like tired legs, 3 games in 5
3 games
nights.
in 5 nights in 3 different cities, all of them super high leverage games. Like, that's fine. But I thought that they've done a great job of making him work offensively to get any look that he has. And he was great in game 2, but I thought that the Cavs were so good defensively on him in game 3 on Saturday. It's hard not to be impressed.
He ran 2.78 miles. I think I remember that off of the NBA tracking data. 2.78 miles in game 1. I was like, that is so much.
It's a lot.
There's no way he can run that much in game 2. He ran 3.25 miles in game 2. And it feels like it's less in this game just because, again, they top locked, downed him, and he just got him to stand in the corner, which is just another. It's like, okay, now this is like a different thing that he's got to deal with. It's again, fascinating to see how many things that Cleveland can do, whereas Miami has to. They just don't have that optionality. They don't have that versatility that Cleveland has.
It almost felt like the Cavs forced this game into playing 4-on-4.
Yep.
Max Strus
100%.
on at least the Cavs' defensive side of the floor.
Yes.
Where Max Strus wasn't playing and Tyler Herro wasn't playing.
Yep.
Those guys were off doing their own thing. And when you can do that, and one of your 4 is the newly minted defensive player of the year, you're going to find success. Like, even if there might be more space for other guys to operate, if you're playing 4-on-4 basketball and Evan Mobley defensively is one of your 4, and the other team doesn't have its best offensive creator, you're gonna do really well.
Quickly, expectations for Game 4 Monday night back here at Kaseya Center.
I am fascinated to see if the Cavs will be able to come out with the same level of desperation that I thought they had on Saturday. I didn't expect them to have this on Saturday. I thought this would be a much closer game. I thought Miami would have that would have a greater level of desperation just because you can't manufacture that. I think if you're the Cavs, it does not make sense to play Darius Garland in that game. I wouldn't play him until
Clearly don't need him.
the second round. I mean, if they can do this in Miami without him, why rush him back? What I just don't have the answer to is what version of Miami is going to show up. Are we going to see the Miami Heat team we saw today? Because if so, I can go ahead and cancel my hotel and flight for Game 6 here. If we see a better version of Miami, okay, we might go back to Cleveland and see. I don't know what to expect. I think even if we see a good version of Miami, the Cavs are still capable of winning, but did they let go of the rope for good today? I just don't have the answer to that question.
I expect a much better Miami Heat team. I just don't think that they do this twice in a row. I haven't seen it from the Heat well, they did have the 10-game losing streak, but that's a little bit different. I don't know if they win the game, right? I'll go ahead and predict that they will, just because sweeps are very rare.
Yeah.
And I just tend to not pick sweeps, so that's just sort of my going rule in general. But who knows, right? Also, look, I want to check restaurant reservations in South Beach, because we got a Saturday night and a Sunday night before that game, and Cleveland might be feeling a little good about themselves. They deserve a nice night out tonight. We'll see. I will encourage them to do it. And you know what? If you have such a great time Saturday night, go out Sunday night. Why not?
Well, what's Sunday in Miami like? I don't know. I've not experienced
it is the same as Saturday night. It's Miami. This is great doing the podcast with you here at Kaseya Center. Locked on Heat, Locked on Cavs. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. And tune in again for more episodes to start the week.